So going into that locker room after the game and see the players and the staff have that success was awesome. Obviously, the big storyline in the game was the turnovers. We protected the football. We were fortunate on the one, but we protected the football, and really that was the difference in this game compared to other games that we have had this season. We got to find a way to be a little bit more explosive on offense. That's something obviously that's going to be important, and we got to continue to find ways to limit people being explosive with their offenses as well in our defense. When it comes to players of the game on offense, Keyvon Lee was the player of the game on offense. On defense, it was P.J. Mustafer. And on special teams, it was Drew Hartlob. And I think Drew is a lot like, my conversations with about Lutz after the game. Just super proud of Drew Hartlob and how he's handled his whole Penn State experience. And, in a lot of ways, we look at him similar to Dan Chisena and the impact that he had for us. And I think, his role can continue to grow for us. Talking about kind of moving forward in this game against Rutgers, obviously got tremendous respect for Greg Schiano and what he's been able to do throughout his entire career. I know Greg. I know people that I respect that are close with Greg. I followed his career very closely. Obviously, what he's been able to do at Rutgers this year has been impressive. So excited about this opportunity. Going on the road. From what we understand, some of the challenges and issues that we had in Michigan last week with not being able to have meetings or meals or anything in the hotel. We don't think we have those challenges here in New Jersey like we did last week, which was obviously challenging, but we were able to overcome it. Obviously, their offensive coordinator, Sean Gleason, has done a really good job. They're multiple. They're using two quarterbacks, somewhat similar to how we are as well. And we're going to have to be ready. We're going to have to be ready to defend them. Watching the TV copy, which is always something I try to do on Sundays to get a feel for the flow of the game. The tempo will be a factor as well. Rob Smith, who we know well, he's been in the league before, both at Rutgers as well as at Minnesota, as well as had time in the SEC. We're familiar with him as well. Obviously, him and Greg have a long history together. And then Adam Shire, their special teams coordinator, they've done a good job. They've been able to make some big plays on special teams, run some trick plays, did some different things to get some momentum and make big plays. So it's going to be a challenge going on the road in the Big Ten, finding a way to get another win and be 1-0 this week. But obviously after Saturday, our Sunday practice was really good. Our meetings on Monday were good, and we're going to need to have a great practice as well today. So look forward to answering questions.
Mark Brennan, Lions 247, The Fight on State. Greg Pickle, you're on deck.
Thanks for your time today, James.
You too, Mark.
Hey, obviously Michigan had to pause in the knock on wood department. Where are you guys? And kind of building on that, how kind of frustrating is it when you can control everything that you can control, but you can't really control what other people are doing? This is the second time you've come out of a game where the other team has had a kind of pause. Thank you. Yeah,
again, I think to your point, I think, we just got to focus on us and doing the very best that we can. I look at the same thing in the NFL, obviously being in the state of Pennsylvania, seeing what's going on with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and some of the things challenges that they have had this year as well. Following that closely, following our own league closely, following college football, following high school football. It's just been an unusual year, and I say this each week, and each week I knock on wood because we don't want to drop our guard and we don't want to do anything because this virus, it can jump on you fast. So We'll continue to try to educate. We'll continue to talk about the importance of this and the sacrifices that our staff is making, the sacrifices that our team is making. Again, going into the season, my number one goal that I talked to the parents and the players about was to keep everybody healthy. So far, we've done a good job of that. I think again, we still have challenges with false positives that create a lot of players and staff members from missing practices or meetings. I think we're over 45 on the season. But in terms of actual positive COVID cases, we've done a pretty good job of that. It's something that we talk about daily. We do reminders verbally. We do reminders in the PowerPoint meetings. We do reminders through group texts. I had a meeting with the parents last week about it, reminding everybody when we do have issues, we address it as a team. So, obviously this year, again, across the NFL and across college football has been challenging, whether it's from a competitive standpoint or whether it has been from a health perspective. And we're trying to balance it all the best we possibly can. But the priority from the beginning has always been about trying to keep everybody as healthy as we possibly can. So, again, we continue to do that, but I'm somewhat cautious about saying that because it can change quickly, and we got to continue to be really on top of every contributing factor that we know makes a difference. Whether it's mask or social distancing and so on.
Greg Pickle, Penn Live. Joe Giuliano, you're on deck.
Good afternoon, Coach. Thanks for your time.
You too, Greg.
You said after the game at Michigan that you guys only had 3 corners available. Do you expect to have more depth there this week? And either way, how would you assess after watching the film how that group fared, considering the obvious number challenges it had?
Yeah, that was something we made a big deal out of in the locker room. I made a big deal out of it on Sunday. Really proud of those guys. Again, I've been doing this a long time. I don't think I've ever been in that situation. And again, I know this year is different, but to only have 3 available and those guys take all those reps and still factor in on special teams, that was big. We anticipate having at least 4 this week, and possibly be able to get to 5. So that would be helpful. We've also done some cross training last week with some of our safeties as well. If we need to be able to do that. So I was very proud of what they were able to do. I thought Michigan had some playmakers at the wide receiver position that we were concerned about. So that was something that was going to be a big factor in the game. So I was very proud of those guys. I made a big deal out of it in the locker room. I made a big deal out of it with those guys individually as well. So that was a big part of our opportunity to be successful on Saturday, and we should have better depth come this week.
Joe Giuliano, Philadelphia Inquirer. Corey Geiger, you're on deck.
Good afternoon, James.
You too.
Sticking with the defense, the first 5 games you guys had trouble getting off the field, but on Saturday you held Michigan to 4 of 12 third down conversions. What flipped the switch for you this past Saturday?
Yeah, and not only that, I think if you factor in the 4th down stops as well, what we did this week, we made critical plays at critical times, which is really something we've done a pretty good job of over our time, but had not done early in the season. We made critical plays at critical times. It's hard to stop people on short and inches like that, and especially with a 6'5", 245-pound quarterback or whatever he was. I think we played with tremendous grit, which again I think is a word that has described us. Really, for 6 years here, and we did that on Saturday, and that I think is a great example of leadership. Guys really kind of stepped up in those moments and made the plays that we needed to make. It also happened during the week in the locker room, and in meetings with things that guys have said. I had a bunch of former players reach out to me and send videos to me as well, and just talked about that. Mike Gesicki talked about the challenges that he had early in his career, and by fighting through that adversity, he feels like it made him a better player, later on. But he had a tough, early part of his career. Trace McSorley, said some things about overcoming adversity, talking about those guys talked about, in those years that we won and won big, in those years that we won a Big Ten championship, it's a few plays. We found a way to make a few more plays, than our opponents, and that's what we need to do on Saturday, and we were able to do that on Saturday. It's going to be the same way this Saturday, and it's going to be the same way from here till whenever, in terms of, you got to make plays at critical times. You got to be consistent in the things that you do. And, we were able to do that on a more consistent level on Saturday, and we got to build on that, Joe.
Corey Geiger, Nittany Sports Now. Audrey, you're on deck.
Good afternoon, James.
Hey, Corey.
You had said after the game, you've got a lot of suggestions from fans, and you appreciate all of them. Can we assume that you're aware of there's a lot of anger from the fan base that's kind of aimed toward you? And how do you deal with a lot of that personally, James?
Well, first of all, I think one of the important things is, besides sending out my Sunday tweet, which always gets a good reaction, I stay off of it. And then the other thing that that I do is, although everybody for 7 years has felt like I handle my social media, I really don't all the time. There's been times where I'll post something or things like that, but other people handle the social media. But the reality is, Corey, that's been the way it has been for 6 years. When we lose a game, there's anger. There is anger. We've won 11 games, I think three out of the last 4 years, and 9 games the other season. And when we have lost a game, there has been anger. There has been anger. So that's the nature of college football and sports. I wish it wasn't. I remember talking to some of the players on Saturday in the locker room before coming into to speak with the media. And, that's something I wish wasn't the case, and I'm not talking about for me, I'm talking about just in general. I remember getting the job and sitting down with Sam Ficken and talking to Sam Ficken about how he got death threats. I get it. I get college football is really important to people, and I get that people are passionate about it, and I get that you don't fill up a 107,000 seat stadium without passion. But I will also tell you, Corey, the good thing is I also have an administrative assistant named Diana Weaver. She's phenomenal, and she only forwards me the cards and the emails that I get that are positive, and people looking at the big picture and the entire work. And you'd be amazed how many positive cards, emails, packages that are sent, all the way from the day I first got the job. And that's kind of the nature of it. So I'm aware of it, obviously, Corey, but I need to keep my focus on the team and the staff and finding a way to be 1-0 this week.
Audrey Snyder, The Athletic. Rich Scarcelli, you're on deck.
Hey, James. Good afternoon.
Hey, Audrey.
I want to go back to that red zone sequence Saturday, where you guys had the one timeout and Sean spiked the ball on first down. Was that call coming from the sideline for the spike? Kind of what was behind it, and the play selection there with the fade? Have you guys had more success with those in practice than you had in games, or kind of what's your thoughts on that sequence?
Yeah, obviously, the fades, I think, obviously we're throwing, whether it's a perimeter fade or whether it's an inside big box, we had a lot of success with that, during practice and early, I guess you'd call camp, whatever that may be. But we need to have a little bit more diversity. There's no doubt about it. In the red zone with play action pass, with high lows, with horizontal stretches. We did try to run, another concept there that we did not have success on. But there's no doubt about it. We need to have more diversity in that. And then obviously the spike in the ball did come from the sideline.
Rich Scarcella, the Reading Eagle. Parth, you're on deck.
Hi, James. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. James, can you describe the development of the offense since Kirk arrived? What have some of the challenges been specifically, and where do you think it is now, and where is it headed?
Yeah, so early on, we weren't running the ball consistently enough to give us a chance in how Kirk has operated with the run game, with the play action pass off of the run game, with the RPOs off of the run game. Which obviously we were able to do better on Saturday. Once you get the run game going, then you're able to put people in conflict, very similar to what they were able to do against us last year, that Kirk was able to do against us. So I think that's going to create more opportunities. We got to build off of what we did Saturday. And we have to be more explosive. I think that's the biggest thing. Okay, running the ball is great. And being consistent and being technically sound and fundamentally sound and being able to be efficient is really important, and we were able to do that Saturday. But now we have to be more explosive down the field, over the middle of the ball, whether they're big runs, whether they're RPOs, play action pass, whether they're shots down the field. But we have to become more explosive.
Parth Upadhyay, Center Daily Times. New bias, you're on deck.
Hey, good afternoon, Coach. Appreciate the time.
You too.
We were talking to Will Fries this morning, and he kind of mentioned that, Keyvon Lee is a guy that's kind of been a spark plug for the team, whether it's, during practice or, like as we saw during the game against Michigan on Saturday. What is it about Keyvon that allows him to take on that role and be that energizer for the team as a freshman?
Well, I think obviously, some of the scenarios that we have been, thrust into, based on this season is obviously part of it. But the other part is, he's a 230-pound guy with good feet. He's got really good vision. And I think the other thing, it's a subtle thing, but it matters, is he always is falling forward. I think that's, something that I think a lot of times goes unnoticed, is when you can always fall forward. You're talking about another 1.5 yards, 2 yards on every run. And we've needed that. We've needed the ability to be able to grind things out. We haven't had at this point the ability to make the free guy miss and go 80. So we need to do that more, but we at least need to be able to break tackles and be able to fall forward and stay on schedule as much as we possibly can. So he's been able to do that. But I think, for a guy who's 230 pounds, he's got really good feet. He's got really good vision. And to be honest with you, he's handled the moments pretty well for a true freshman. It hasn't been too big for him.
You bias Wilborn, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Ben Jones, you're on deck.
Coach, obviously I know we're here to talk Penn State, but I got to ask you, with what happened with Vanderbilt, with Mason, having to leave there, how tough was that to see from afar with everything that you guys got started there and then moving forward?
Well, you never like to see that, in the profession, and this is, obviously a tough business. But you never like to see that. I know a lot of people there. I got a lot of connections there. My phone's been ringing off the hook, about that situation. And obviously, Vanderbilt means a lot to me. They were a school that took a chance on me and gave me an opportunity. We were able to go there and have a lot of success. So I wish Vanderbilt all the best. I wish Derek's a really good coach. He's had a great career, not only in college but in the NFL. Was a great defensive coordinator at Stanford. I know him and his family very well. We've been on the Nike trip for a long time together. Really good people. So he'll land on his feet. He's too good of a coach and he's too good of a person not to. And I know Vanderbilt is committed to winning and doing it the right way. So I wish them the best. But yeah, it's a tough profession. You're only as good as your last game. You're only as good as your last season. And you hate to see that for people. Especially when you know them. I think it's one thing when you see it from afar and it's just some guy, but when you know people personally, their families and all those types of things, it's tough.
Ben Jones, StateCollege.com. T. Frank, you're on deck.
Hey, James, how's it going?
Good, Ben. You?
No complaints. At the end of the day, you're a guy with a job, and if you're like the rest of us, you have frustrating days at work or want to hit your keyboard a little harder than you should. What does winning do for you?
For me, Ben, and I know you guys sometimes wish I showed it more, but I think as a leader, the consistency is really important. That you never get too high and you never get too low. And that doesn't mean I don't show emotion with the team, and that doesn't mean I don't show emotion with the staff. But really the wins are what you work so hard for, what you work so hard for the players to have success, for the staff to have success, for the fans, for the lettermen, for everybody to be able to take 3 hours away from their reality and turn on the game and be proud of what they see. And for the most part, we've done a really good job of that, but I wish, Ben, the older I get and the longer I've been in the profession, the wins, they're awesome and I love them, but the losses just are really painful. And I think they're painful because of a lot of the things that have already been asked and the statements that have already been said on here. The responsibility and the reaction and and how quickly it changes, Ben. I mean, in this profession, in this game, it can change quick. You can win for 4 seasons at a level as high as anybody in the country, and then during a season that's been challenging on our world and a year that's been challenging on our world, it can change quickly. And for me to sit here and say that's not hard, that's hard. Again, after the game, talking to some of my players that didn't want to come in, and answer questions, and we're really struggling with some things, even after a win. That's hard. And with the face that I always try to present, and represent Penn State the right way and do it in a positive way and do it with class and do it the right way. That's really important to me. And from the majority of the people I talk to at Penn State, that's really important to them. It's obviously easy to do it after wins, but I think, your character is really shown during times of challenge. I learn a lot about myself. I learn a lot about the staff. I learn a lot about the players. I learn a lot about the fan base. I learn a lot about everything, through the good and the bad. And to me, I think one of the things that's important, like I tried to talk to the team and the staff about last week and talk about the parents, we have to own this season. We have to own it. But this is not the totality of who we are. The Cotton Bowl champs, we're that too. The Fiesta Bowl champs, we're that too. The Big Ten champions. I don't think there's been any other team in the conference that's won a Big Ten championship besides us and those other guys. So for me, I just try to keep the big picture in mind as much as I possibly can. But for me to sit here and say that my staff and my players aren't aware of it, and does it have an impact? Yes, it does.
T. Frank Carr, ESPN Radio 1450. Tyler Donahue, you're on deck.
Hey, James. Good afternoon.
You too, T. Frank.
I want to go back to something you mentioned a couple minutes ago about broken tackles. PFF had you charted with 15 broken tackles last week and 34 for the rest of the season. If you're not able to hit those deep shots, and you're not able to, get those explosive plays, how do you go about generating explosive plays otherwise?
Yeah, I think that's all the things you just said. To create explosive plays, you're going to do that through scheme. You're going to do that through, broken tackles, making people miss, 50-50 catches, big time throws, calling the right play at the right time when you get an indication based on safety rotation or linebacker skew that there's an opportunity to take advantage of, and something that you've worked with the players during the week. So typically, if they're bringing an edge pressure, they're usually sliding, the defensive front away from the pressure. And, if you can know that's coming and wall it off and hit that crease, then you got a chance to make a big play, especially when, the rotation is going away. So equipping your players with the ability to do that. And again, over the 7 years, we've done a pretty good job of that, but we need to do more of all those things offensively, moving forward. And it's all of it. It's broken tackles. It's big time throws. It's 50-50 catches. It's making people miss. It's scheme. It's having an indication of seeing something coming and calling it the right time. It's all. Sometimes it's a little luck. It's all those things.
Tyler Donahue, Lions 247. Donnie Collins, you're on deck.
James, we were monitoring Devin Ford since he left the Iowa game early, but then you told us death in the family caused his absence last week. I'm curious, with the conditions that are put on COVID, does that complicate a player coming back from some kind of family event like that, or do you expect Devin Ford to be with you this week? And if you could just kind of speak on Jaywan Sider and how he has managed that running back room with all that's been thrown his way.
Yeah, Jaywan is as good as there is, not only as a coach, but as a person and as a man. And, he's done a really good job. He's been great for me. And he's done a really good job of recruiting. He's done a really good job of developing. He's done a really good job of building those type of relationships. But yeah, obviously when you lose your first two running backs before, I think, the second drive of the season, then, obviously, the circumstances have changed and some challenges. And then obviously you lose your third running back to a family situation. So, and then with COVID, yeah, it magnifies it. If it's not COVID, a guy can go home and, come back, if they're willing and able to, based on family circumstances, and you can throw them right back in there. But with COVID, it makes it challenging. With Devin, him and his family made that decision, which we were totally supportive of. Actually talked to his dad and his stepmom, maybe Sunday night, it maybe was. And it was obviously important for Devin to be able to come home, and he was able to do that last week, and he was back for practice on Sunday. So Devin is available, but whenever we're dealing with any type of family emergency and situation like that, we're always going to just be as supportive as we possibly can on the family and what their needs are and what the players' needs are. Even during a season like this where our depth is challenged.
Donnie Collins, Times Tribune. Mike Gross, you're on deck.
Hey James, when you put together a turnover-free game when you've had some struggles protecting the ball, how much of that is the work the quarterbacks do on their own, the film study, the things like that, and how much of it is the coaches kind of rallying together, getting a game plan together. That could be executed at a better level.
I think it's all of it. I think it's all of it. I think it's the coaching and the fundamentals and the attention to detail that the coaches take and the players take during practice. It's some of how you call the game. It's everybody kind of having an understanding of the importance of it. And again, like I've mentioned, we've done a pretty good job of that over our time here. But I think that was a huge factor in the game, obviously we had that one play and we were fortunate that it got overturned, because we haven't had a whole lot of that this year. Some calls that could have gone either way. We haven't got many of them. So that was a big one, obviously, in that game. But yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything. It's the coaches, making sure that we're holding everybody accountable to that. It's the players understanding, the details and the fundamentals that they have to do consistently, because it's one of those deals. It'll catch up to you when it catches up to you, it typically happens at inopportune times.
Mike Gross, LMP News, and then Nate Bauer, you're on deck.
Hi, James. Good afternoon.
You too, Mike.
Just kind of curious for my own understanding, did you get any clarification on the play where Shaka directed the ball back inbounds? Did you get any clarification on that? Was that correctly ruled? Because we saw some rules people on social media and stuff say that it was incorrectly ruled. What have you heard about that since?
Yeah, I saw some people brought to my attention. A lot of times people will print stuff out that they see and send it to me, or players will text it to me or whatever. So I saw some highly qualified people all over the country saying that was not ruled correctly. I have gotten an interpretation from the Big Ten, but I usually have a conversation as well. And I'm still waiting to get clarification and understanding of that call, because it's been interpreted very inconsistently. And to me, the way the rule reads to me is if it's questionable, you don't call it. That's how the rule. I literally read the rule myself, and most of the interpretations I have seen said you don't make that call. I also saw a clip in the Oregon game that was clearly a tip and was not called. I know that's a different conference and all those types of things, but I just want to make sure that I understand it clearly so I can address it with my team for the future. We can learn from it and grow from it. And same thing with my staff. That's to me why I turn stuff in each week and have conversations so we can learn from it. I mean, to me, that's what life's about. Is you go through experiences in football, you go through experiences in life, and you try to learn from them and you try to grow from them. So I'm still waiting to get clarification. We got a guy on our campus who's an official that works our practices, and I asked him and got his opinion. And most of the opinions that I've gotten have aligned with the way I see it. But I want to make sure that I'm crystal clear, from the Big Ten as well.
Nate Bauer, Blue White Illustrated. Peter Terpstra, you're on deck.
Hey, James. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Hey, from a depth perspective at linebacker, we haven't seen Charlie Catcher for the last couple of weeks, and I think we saw Curtis Jacobs for just a couple of reps. How much stress does that put your top line under, and do you expect that to be the situation moving forward for you guys there?
Yeah. So with Curtis is going to continue to get opportunities on special teams and continue to get opportunities defensively. And that package, will grow as the season continues on. One of the things that's been a little bit challenging this year is you usually have the out of conference games early on to get people reps, to get a rotation, to build confidence. And as the season goes on, you continue to build those things. But obviously when every game is a dogfight, it makes it challenging to do those things. But we got a lot of excitement and confidence about Curtis. You'll continue to see him, get more reps and more opportunities. And then with Charlie, we typically don't talk about injuries unless they're season-ending injuries, and Charlie had a season-ending injury, so that's why you haven't seen him, and that's why he hasn't been available. Typically, I like to have a conversation with Charlie about that and make sure we're all on the same page. But with you asking me the question, I didn't want to not answer it. And typically, you guys see these guys walking around on campus or in the community, or you find out about it anyway if they're on crutches or in a sling or whatever it may be. So it doesn't stay quiet very long. So I'll probably, when I leave here, I'll probably call Charlie right away to make sure he knows that I said this to you guys. But Charlie did have a season-ending injury.
Last two questions. We'll start with Peter Terpstra and Neil Rudell. You're on deck.
Hey, Coach. Just wanted to go back to your run game real quick. Do you think it's possible for a team in the Big Ten to be able to be a winning program without leaning on the run game?
Yeah, I think you can be a winning program by doing one or the other at a high level. But I think to be a championship program, you got to be able to do both. You got to be able to do both. So I think there's going to be times we've been through it ourselves where we've been able to score a bunch of points, and there's been critical times where we've needed to be able to run the ball and hadn't been able to do it in those times, even in seasons when we've been competing for championships. So you have to be able to do both. You got to be able to throw the ball, at a time and everybody in the stadium knows you're going to throw it during 2 minutes. And you got to be able to run the ball in 4 minutes when everybody knows you're going to run the ball. And those things I think are really important. So to answer your question, I think you have to be able to do both.
Neil Rudell, Tuna Mirror has the last question.
Thank you, Chris. Hey, James. Curious what your feelings would be on a potential bowl situation with the uniqueness of this year and everybody eligible and extra practices available. Is it still out there as a motivator, as a goal for the team?
Yeah, we're trying to be 1-0 this week. We, even during our last 4 years or 5 years, or 6 years, we never really talked about that. The one season we talked about it was the year where we were ineligible for a bowl at the beginning of the season, and then found out we were. But from that point on, we're just focused on trying to be 1-0 this week.
Thank you very much, Coach. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.